Dear friends, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. For us, this is a very joyous moment as we have an opportunity to share with you once again in a new, very challenging year. Another great Christmas message from the ICQ. It has been a tradition to offer a Christmas message, and what we would like to offer you this year is a synthesis on how to achieve self knowledge through the exercise of meditation. In previous years, we have dedicated our efforts into expanding on the symbols and the teachings that exist within the anthropological records of the great sites that exist in the area of Central America. But this year, making a transition into also that which is practical and to satisfy the impending needs of humanity. We are delighted to have this opportunity of bringing to you what is self knowledge through the exercise of meditation. And for us to start, we would like to quote the words of the Venerable Master Samael Aumveor when he says, daily meditation leads us into a radical transformation. Those who do not seek the elimination of their defects, they live like a butterfly going from school to school. They die unsuccessful lives without reaching the self realization of the being. And Samael gives us these very commanding and at the same time little harsh words because it is through the exercise of meditation that we can truly get the opportunity to know ourselves and understand the intricacies, the structure, the transactions, the demands, the effects that each one of our psychological aggregates has within our own psyche. So, because this is meant to give you as much information as possible so that you can grasp it and immediately put it into use. Let's go ahead and start with what are the key elements of meditation. Because much has been said about meditation. The word meditation today is a word that can be used and that is indeed used too loose and too freely. And we would like to help you if you were willing to open yourself to that which is new. Help you grasp this information so that you can ground yourself back into the fundamentals of this great science. So, starting with the key elements of meditation, we would like to start with posture, relaxation, and of course, what is the exercise of retrospection. And when it comes to the exercise of meditation, well, we cannot meditate if we are arguing, complaining, and fighting against the physical body. You see, if you sit down and suddenly you start feeling that your feet are getting numb and that you're getting cold, or that maybe your socks are too tight, or the belt is too tight, or maybe there is a humming in the background, or a dog barking, etc., well, we cannot be in an internal contention. We need to be able to calm not only the emotional center, but be able to relax the mind and bring a degree of relaxation into the physical body. So let's start by speaking about postures. And this is exactly what asana stands for. Asana is posture. And there are three basic postures that we can assume when we are practicing the exercise of meditation. And the first one is the posture of the corpse. This one is indeed very significant because the corpse invites us to contemplate and think immediately about the mystery of death. And it is not, of course, the death that has to do with the cessation of the senses and the last breath of the physical body. We're speaking here about death from a mystical perspective. That death that within us creates new time and space by eliminating from within us those aspects that are indeed so undesirable, so that when we make space by getting rid of what is old, that we can create the most auspicious conditions to receive that which is new. And the posture of the corpse is one that is very simple to assume, because what we must do is that we must orient our head towards the north. We will rest on our backs with our legs and our arms stretched alongside the body, and we will bring our heels together. Because we are relaxing, we will allow, once the heels are together, for the feet to comfortably open and spread apart as if they were a very gentle fan. And in this posture, we start then working on the exercise of relaxation. But if the corpse posture were not the one most suitable for you at that moment, we can always assume the posture of the flaming star. This is the posture of the pentagram. This is where we emulate that beautiful relic created by Eliphas Levi, where we also, with our head pointing towards the north, we will comfortably spread our arms side to side, and we will gently spread our legs apart, forming the shape of a five-pointed star. This is indeed a very powerful posture, because the columns of tenebrous ones, they always flee before the presence of the flaming star. And the third one would be Padmasana. Padma means lotus and asana means posture. So Padmasana, it is the posture of the lotus, or the lotus posture. Samael recognizes that many of us here in the Western Hemisphere do not have the degree of looseness in our joints, and that we are not as stretchy as many of our good friends out in the East. So even though we can assume the lotus posture, if it were impossible for us to assume the Padmasana, we can always assume the posture of the corpse, the flaming star, and if not, it is perfectly acceptable for us to sit down comfortably on a chair. But what do we do with the hands? Well, we can keep our hands in the corpse posture, well, alongside the body, just resting comfortably on the floor. If we are in the flaming star posture, we can simply spread them side to side and allow our arms to also rest comfortably on the floor. But when we are in Padmasana, what do we do with the hands? Well, just as when we are sitting on a chair, we can very easily allow our hands to rest comfortably on our thighs. But if not, we can assume what is known as a Jnana Mudra. And the Jnana Mudra is when we unite in both hands the thumb and the index finger, allowing the other three fingers to remain united without creating stress on the body. Just allow them to assume a natural anatomic posture. This union is a beautiful one because it symbolizes the union of fire and air. And if not, we can always bring our hands together, the right one over the left one, in what is known as Diya Mudra. This Diya Mudra is a very nice posture because it encourages the relaxation of the body. So when you are sitting comfortably on a chair, if you choose to not have your hands resting on your thighs, you can always assume the Jnana Mudra, or you can assume the Diya Mudra and allow your hands to rest comfortably on your lap. Again, because this last one, it truly encourages the relaxation of the body. But once we have selected our posture, then what next? Well, the logical thing is, let's go ahead and relax the physical machine. Now that we have sat down, now that we have not only taken the time, but that we have applied our willpower and our know-how on how to do this, let's go ahead and focus on eliminating any tension, any stress, anything that may be causing any kind of adverse reaction within the physical body. And for us to relax the human machine, well, we have a few systems that are available for our use. And the first one is the emulation of the breathing of an infant. This is certainly a marvelous exercise to do, because as we are either sitting comfortably or resting on our back, we will use our objective imagination and our willpower, both of them together, of course, in vibrant harmony, so that we can replicate, at whatever our age is, the breathing of an infant. As we observe those beautiful creatures, as they are in their cradle, as they rest in the arms of their mother, what we can see is that the breathing is completely effortless. The breathing is in through the nose and out through the nose, and it is so subtle and gentle that it is almost unperceivable. You definitely cannot even grasp it using your sense of hearing. And as we start emulating that type of breathing, we will notice that gradually the physical body starts relaxing, that you start reaching a degree of comfort that is very inviting to the state of relaxation. And at that moment, we continue making use of our imagination and objective imagination and our willpower, so that we can then replicate the other attributes of what is an infant in a state of relaxation. And we can see not only the gentle softness of their extremities, the arms and the feet. We can see that not only they are soft as silk, but when it comes to relaxation, they are as loose as silk itself. And what we will do is that we will gladly emulate that very same sense of relaxation within our arms, as we will see them as if they were soft and smooth as silk. And the same thing with our legs. As we are doing this, as we consistently inhale and exhale through our nose, what we will come to see is that the physical body will reach very quickly a very deep and profound state of relaxation. But if we don't do this, we can also do the exercise where we are projecting the pulsations of the heart in specific areas of our body. This is a wonderful practice that is always used by the great masters. And what we do once we assume our posture is that we will then make an initial projection of the beating of our heart onto the tip of our nose. And with our eyes closed, as we start experiencing the gentle pulsation of the heart on the tip of our nose, we will gladly experience that sensation with gratitude and satisfaction. We will not identify with it, because if we do, immediately that is followed with fascination, and the fascination inevitably results in us falling into the sleep of the consciousness. So what we will do is that as we start experiencing the pulsation of the heart on the tip of our nose, we will then move and project it onto our right ear. And as we continue to breathe in through our nose and out through our nose, those pulsations on the right ear start becoming very, very tangible. The transition becomes very real. And again, we will experience them on our right ear without anything other than satisfaction and gratitude. With every exhalation, we continue releasing any tension in the body, and from our right ear, we will project them onto our right hand. And whether our hands are resting on our thighs, they are resting alongside the body, they are in the jnana mudra or in the Dhyana mudra, we will then allow for that gentle pulsation of the heart to express itself on the tip of our fingers and in the palm of our hand. Again, every exhalation continues to contribute to the release and the elimination of any stress in the body. And once we feel it in our right hand, then we once again transition it onto our right foot. And the same thing we experience in gratitude and in gratefulness. We experience satisfaction for being able to do that exercise. And as we continue breathing, we immediately start feeling that our physical body starts vibrating very gently, which is a vibration very typical of a deep state of relaxation. And just like so, we transition from our right foot into our left foot, from the left foot onto our right hand, from the right hand onto our into our left hand, from our left hand into our left ear, and from the left ear back into the tip of our nose. As we complete that circle, which corresponds to that magical circle of protection that we can always create whenever we are doing superior work, then we are ready to start our exercise of meditation. We can also concentrate in each and every part of our body. And in many cases, as we start becoming very agile, reaching a good state of relaxation, as we lay comfortably on the floor or we lay comfortably on a chair, with our eyes closed, with that attention in our breathing pattern, we will start focusing on our feet, on our ankles, our calves and our knees, our thighs and our creative organs and the hips. We will then observe and focus our attention into our internal organs, our stomach, our heart, our lungs. We will expand that up into our shoulders. We will focus in our elbows, in our wrists, in our hands. And by then, after just a few brief minutes, we can start then experiencing that deep relaxation of the physical body. We continue projecting that, releasing the muscles of our jaw, releasing our lips and our tongue, allowing our eyes to remain relaxed, releasing any tension that may be left behind between our eyebrows. And as we continue to focus and concentrate on each part of the body, we can then feel how that relaxation continues expanding until it reaches the crown of the head. And at that moment, we are in a deep state of relaxation. And the last one that we prefer as our method of practice for every one of our Gnostic labs of practical application is the combination of imagination and willpower by using the practice of the gnomes. And in this case, we just imagine that our physical body is populated by an infinite amount of little gnomes. And as we are resting flat on the floor, as we're sitting down comfortably on a chair, we use our objective imagination and our willpower to see these little gnomes walking out the soles of our feet one by one. And as they do, we concentrate in each part of the body. And as each little gnome walks out and we continue concentrating in each part of the body, we slowly start growing that relaxation from the feet all the way up to the crown of our head. These are just some of the systems that we can use so that we can relax the physical body. So we relax the body. By then, the breathing is helping us to calm the mind. It is helping us to calm our emotional center. And the next thing that naturally follows is the exercise of retrospection. An exercise of retrospection is only asking of us to see our day as if we were watching a movie, but backwards, in reverse. And we will start the exercise of relaxation at the moment that we start our practice, and we will walk back methodically through our day all the way back to the moment when we open our eyes early in the morning. The beauty about this exercise is that it helps regenerate the brain. It helps bring back again connections, very active between those neural networks. It revitalizes that agglomeration of cells within the brain, and the brain suddenly starts firing different. After some practice, you will notice that it becomes very easy for you to walk backwards into your day, and you start becoming capable of remembering what you did yesterday, what you did the day before. You start remembering what you were doing last week, what you were doing last month. And slowly but surely, not only you start regenerating the brain by creating very strong connections within that neural network, you start then strengthening your ability to remember. And little things like crossing through the threshold, just crossing through the door from one bedroom to the other, where today, so many of us, as we cross that, we're just standing there wondering, what was I going to be doing? You see, that starts becoming a thing of the past. You start becoming so aware of the present moment that you start experiencing slowly but methodically the awakening of the consciousness. And of course, when this exercise happens consistently in the physical body, as a habit, we bring it with us into the astral plane every night when our physical body goes to sleep, and we naturally unfold. And then we can repeat it in the astral plane as well. So that when we come back into the body, then remembering all of those oniric experiences becomes very easy. Now, the beauty about this is that the best that you can walk backwards in a retrospective exercise, the easier it becomes for you to identify your psychological aggregates. So you see, we start with a comfortable posture and we relax the physical body, and we start developing and strengthening those neural connections with an exercise of retrospection. But sometimes we will see that the mind is just too stubborn. It is simply a very stubborn beast, and we have to relax it and we have to calm it. So how is it that we can achieve the calmness of the mind? Well, we can start doing that by the exercise of serene reflection. Because, dear friends, the calmness of the mind is what sets the consciousness into activity. The whole goal of serene reflection is the exercise of contemplation. We are being asked to confront what is happening in the mind, but we cannot think of the word confront as a quarrel or an argument or some kind of battle. We need to go beyond those very inferior perceptions of what confronting is. And we have to look at confronting from the perspective of having the ability, the capacity of simply being there and perceiving. That is it. We need to be willing and become capable of confronting those images that flow through the mind. For our purposes, we will say contemplate, which is the posture of the Buddha. And we will contemplate the flow of thoughts, and we will offer no resistance. The best exercise that we can follow is by visualizing ourselves as if we were transparent. Transparent and of a very subtle hue of blue. And as we see our body in that comfortable asana, in that comfortable posture, and we see it transparent and of a hue of blue, we can then see the thoughts as they flow through the mind without any kind of resistance. As those thoughts flow, as we can see them without putting any pushback, without any kind of retraction or tension, we will simply use our objective imagination and see ourselves grasping them and crumbling them and simply tossing them into a deep abyss. And as we see that little ball of thought and we toss it into that abyss and we see how it gets lost within that great depth, slowly the mind stops projecting. Slowly, the mind realizes that what it's doing is completely useless and it becomes tired and it simply stops. You see, serene reflection is what happens when the mind and the personality become passive. And the moment that the mind stops thinking, that is the moment when we can perceive best. Because when the mind is not putting any comparisons, when the mind is not pushing forth with its ideas and its analysis and all of its failed logics, what happens is that the consciousness comes into action. And the no thinking of the mind becomes then an opportunity for the manifestation of the consciousness, and that is what is pratyahara. So now that we are talking about relaxing the mind, now that we know about the exercise of serene reflection, we can make use of words of power that can help us. Because whenever we use of our creative word to evocate words of power that can help us with our spiritual practice, by all means, we should. And some people believe that for the mantra, which is the actual word that means word of power, some people believe, well, I need to know the mantras in Sanskrit, or I need to know them in Aramaic, or I need to know them in Coptic for them to be effective. And this is just a fixed idea that is based on a false reality. Because the fact is that we can create mantras in our own beautiful language. It all has to do with the use that we give to the creative word, and it has to do with the degree of consciousness that we bring behind the exercise. So we can use mantras, and mantras are words of power. And there are many mantras that we can use, but of course there are some that we use consistently in our practice and that we would like to offer you so that you can understand, number one, what they mean, and number two, when to use them. The first one is the mantra Aum. And when we are chanting the mantra Aum, what we would like to invite you is to chant it Aum. Because when we are chanting this mantra, we are invoking the power of the innermost. We are invoking the superlative consciousness of the innermost. We are invoking the innermost itself and its fire. And when we chant the mantra Aum, we verbalize it as Aum, and we can repeat it as often and as much as we want, for as long as the chanting is not generating stress in the body. So we don't have to chant it so that we can be heard 5 or 6 homes down the street. We can chant it very gently. When we verbalize it, the word becomes very powerful. There will be times in which it would be inconvenient to verbalize because your spouse may be trying to sleep, or the baby may have already fallen asleep and you don't want to wake him up. In those cases, and in the other exceptions that are certainly reasonable, we can chant them with the mind. And the mantra Aum is Aum. See? We also have the mantra Pangder. And Pangder allows us to create a direct line of connection beyond our being to the Father of our Father. Let's not forget that each and every one of our individual and particular innermosts, yours and his and mine, each one of our fathers has its own father. And our innermost is a direct emanation of that thing that is known as the Divine Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Of those three, it is the Father which is the crown of life. So we can always reach and ask for the help of the Father of our Father and prepare ourselves to receive His teaching by chanting the mantra Pangder. These vowels and these consonants together, they have a marvelous effect in the body. Because when we chant a mantra like Pangder, the letter A allows for the vibration not only of the chakras of the lungs, allowing us to extract a lot more prana out of the air that we're breathing, but it also allows for the vibration of the thymus gland that is right there in the center of the heart. The letter E allows for the harmonious vibration of our throat chakra, because it is this throat chakra, or this magnetic center, what gives us the faculty of the magical ear. It is through this chakra that through the physical body we can hear internally the words and the music from the higher spheres. And last, the letter R. It invites the blood to vibrate. And as the blood vibrates, it magnetizes itself because, of course, at our thighs, we have our femoral arteries, and those get magnetized directly by the forces of the constellation of Sagittarius. So when we do all this together, it is as if you were taking your human machine and you were electrifying it so that it can receive of that energy, and also you can hear the word of the Father. We also have the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum. We have it written right there on the screen in Tibetan. It is a beautiful mantra. But when we chant this mantra, Samael tells us, Om Mani Padme Hum is chanted Om Masi Padme Yom. And we will extend each and every one of these vowels whenever we're chanting these mantras. Om Masi Padme Yom. Don't be surprised if you hear people of the Tibetan origin or people who are involved in Buddhist practices chanting this mantra as if it were a melody. Certainly there is nothing wrong with that. When we are chanting Om Masi Padme Yom, we are prolonging each and every one of those vowels because of the additional positive effect that that has on the physical body. Because it helps to bring into harmonious vibration the chakras of the head. It brings into harmonious vibration the chakras of the lungs, the chakra of the throat. The letter U invites the harmonious vibration of the chakra in our solar plexus, but also the letter M invites for the vibration of our creative glands. And when that happens, we start transmuting our creative energies in ways that are exemplary, marvelous. There is also the mantra Gate. Gate means liberation. Om Masi Padme Yom, Om Mani Padme Hum. It means, oh God in me. Oh God in me. But the mantra Gate, it stands for liberation. And this is a beautiful mantra that the great Amitabha gave to a monk who was suffering tremendously as he was caught in the midst of a blizzard. And for him to be able to escape his suffering, Amitabha gave this monk the mantra Gate. And Gate means liberation. And Samael recommends that we chant it Gate, Gate, every time evoking that liberation on the other side of the river. There is a greater mantra that is the mantra of the Prajna Paramitas, and it's called Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhiswaha, which means liberation, liberation, liberation to the other side of the river, all of humanity. Liberation. Alleluia. We can also chant that one. And last one is the mantra Wu. And the mantra Wu emulates the sound of the wind, of the hurricane winds as they blow through the forest. And the mantra Wu is a mantra that you would like to keep chanting just mentally, because it sounds something like this. Just like the wind that allows for the dragging away of all of those inferior thoughts, and that invites the manifestation of the consciousness. So we can use all of those mantras, and if not, we can make use of koans. And koans are enigmatic phrases. These come to us from the depths of wisdom of the Zen Buddhism. And the whole purpose of a koan is that when we project it into the mind, that the mind surrenders, that it is incapable of applying its logic and its ways of thinking and its fixed ideas and its judgments and its fears to try to solve it. And as you continue projecting that mind through the consciousness into the mind, you will see that it naturally surrenders. And there are dozens of these koans. But for the purposes of us here tonight, we are sharing 3 with you that are certainly some of the most effective that we have seen in practice. The first one is the question: it is not the mind, it is not the Buddha, it is nothing. Another koan that we can use is: what was your original face? And another one that we can use is: if all things reduce to unity, to what does unity reduce to? Koans are certainly powerful and beautiful. And there are many others. But if you were to memorize these 3, and you were to apply them at any moment when you are seeking to bring the calmness of the mind, you would be surprised at how effective they are and how much more successful would be your meditation practice. So look, we have spoken about postures, and we have spoken about mudras, and we have spoken about calming the mind, and we have looked at mantras and koans. We also said retrospection. And we said retrospection helps us to eliminate our defects. So because there are many different types of meditation, if we are going to be going and walking into an exercise of meditation to work in the comprehension and elimination of our defects, then we need to comprehend them. Then we need a didactic that can help us understand profoundly our own psychological aggregates. And for that, we need to be willing to observe these many different personas that exist within our own psyche that keep us reacting like puppets and operating like victims many times before our very own circumstances. So for us to understand better the many phases of the ego, for us to be able to grasp what is it that we must do to comprehend our defects, let's start by what are the things that you must go through in the exercise of meditation. Now, we certainly do not anticipate you to memorize all this, but as you start putting this into practice, you will notice that the flow of these efforts manifests itself effortlessly. Because the first thing that we would like to do is concentrate. We relax the body, we relax the mind, and as a consequence, our emotional center also calms down. That brings us into a condition when we are ready to listen. As we are contemplating our thoughts, or as we are walking backwards in that exercise of retrospection, there would be one or more events during the day that will naturally stand out. Everyone goes through their day, and everybody has one or more events in the day that is just sticking out like a sore thumb. And at that moment, in those moments where you may have experienced an argument or a moment of shame or fear or an insecurity, or that you may have found yourself absolutely joyous, it does not matter. We need to concentrate on that. And with a relaxed mind, with a relaxed body, in an attitude of contemplation, we will bring all of the attention of the consciousness into that particular event. And as we do that, we will reconstruct the event. Notice that we are not saying we're going to rerun the event the way that we believe it should have happened. We are not saying that. We are not saying we need to repeat the event and this time we're going to show them It's not the case. That is not what we're saying. We need to reconstruct the event exactly as it happened. And the thing is that as you are reconstructing the event, do your very best effort so that you can identify what you were feeling, what you were hearing, what you were seeing, what you were tasting, what you were smelling. Make sure that you extract out of those 5 physical senses as much information as you possibly can for that particular event. Because as you go through it once and you re-listen to all those words and you find yourself maybe cringing a little bit, that is okay. Let's once again ask our innermost to bring us back that deep state of relaxation. And as we do that, let's walk over the event again. And let's try to get just a little bit more of the information that existed there. By the 3rd time that you may be revisiting that event, you will notice that suddenly it doesn't have any burden on you. You will notice that there is a natural comprehension that emerges. And you will know exactly when is it that happens. But the moment it does, make an effort so that now that you know that that was the last time that that actually happened, let's see if you can embrace the principle of spontaneity, allowing the consciousness to continue working and show you when was the first time that that defect manifested. Friends, when you do that, all of a sudden you find yourself at another time within the realm of the mind, and you can revisit and reconstruct that event all over again. And as you do that, you gain a deeper comprehension of that defect. Because you have been looking at the information that comes from your senses. Because you have seen what are the dynamics that are taking place right then and there. You will intuitively know where and when is it that that defect shows the most strength. And now that you see that, now that you can understand that you have a deep comprehension of this defect, take it a step further and look at where is it in the cylinders of the human machine that this aggregate is coming from. Because there are many defects that come from the intellect, because we have an intellectual center. There are many defects that come from the emotional center. There are others that come from our instinctive impulses, because we have an instinctive center at the base of our spine. Those are all those defects that are either looking to fight or to run away. All of those defects that throw some kind of reaction whenever somebody's telling you something or is bringing something for your attention, and you immediately feel like you're going to engage or that you better stand up and leave, that is coming automatically from that instinctive center. There are many others that are associated to our habits. Every time that somebody comes and interrupts our fantasies, you know, that fantasy of just getting your phone and be aimlessly scrolling, you know, that repeatable motion, the doom scrolling, as they say, when somebody interrupts that, well, that is an interruption to a habit that the body has already created. That's our defects that are reacting and are coming from the motor center. And of course, the ones that emerge from the sexual cylinder of the machine. Those that are intimately associated with lust. Friends, if you are sitting calmly with a relaxed mind, a relaxed body, and a relaxed center of emotion, if you are contemplating being able to be there and perceiving, and as you are revisiting your day, you find that event that sticks out like a sore thumb and you revisit it a couple of times, 2, 3, or 5, it doesn't matter. It is as much as you need. And you walk back in the timeline and you find when was it the first time that it manifested, and you comprehend that. As you have that integral understanding of that defect, and you can see from which cylinder in the human machine it's coming from. By now knowing what nourishes that aggregate becomes very easy. Because you will see that sometimes it is a smell, sometimes it is a color, sometimes it is a shape, sometimes it is some kind of physical sensation. You will know what is it that feeds the aggregate. Everybody knows that when they're hungry, they tend to get angry. Well, there's an example. Sometimes you see that beautiful person, with their chiseled chin and their chiseled abs, and that immediately evokes a reaction. In other instances, we can see the soft curves and the flowing hairs, and that immediately triggers a reaction. So we need to see what are those things. Because when we know what is nourishing the aggregate, we can see how it interacts with others. And before long, you start seeing that your anger is preceded by moments of inactivity, of high inertia, aggregates of sloth. Or you can see that your lust is preceded by anger. Or you can see that your depression may be preceded by moments of self-consideration. You can then start seeing how it interacts with other psychological aggregates. And once we have that, all that information gives you what is known as self-revelation. Before long, you're just looking at that defect and you're wondering, wow, how is it that I've allowed this thing to continue happening over and over again? You see, it becomes very evident how that defect is harming you. It becomes clear how is it that it's not only harming you, how it is harming that nucleus in your family, how it is impacting your spouse and your children, how is it that it's complicating things at work, how is it that it makes the relationships with your parents sometimes a little bit more difficult. Same thing with your neighbors next door or across the street, even with people that you don't even know as you interact with them in social media. You can see how it impairs your ability to do work. Not only the work of men, but also the work of the transformation of the internal man. It becomes evident. The suffering that it has brought you and the suffering that it can project into the future. So all of a sudden you see what is the benefit of disintegrating it. And the beautiful thing is that we cannot confuse comprehension with elimination. Just because you comprehend it does not mean that the defect is going to go away, because it doesn't work like that. You see, the mind has no capacity to get rid of any defect. We always have to invoke of a power that is superior to the mind. And at those moments, we can invoke of the power of our Divine Mother, Kundalini. And all we have to do is ask her with infinite love, Divine Mother, please, we ask of you, we beg of you that you reduce this defect into a cosmic dust. And she will do. But we cannot just be strangers with our Divine Mother. We know of many friends who have a very strange relationship with their moms, and they call them once every 3 months, and they visit once a year. And that is not the kind of relationship that we would like to have with our mother, and much less with our Divine Mother Kundalini. We need to be in constant contact with her, because she is not only a power superior to the mind, but she is with us right here and right now. We don't want to be the ungrateful child. As a derived aspect of our being, our Divine Mother is the repository of the fire. And she is the only one who is capable of reducing our defects to a cosmic dust. It does not matter if you call her Kundalini, Isis, Maria, Adonia, Tonantzin. It does not matter if you call her, it does not matter. What is important is that we do, and that we love her with all of our heart. And to do that, we have here 2 very simple prayers that you can learn, that you should memorize, so that you can repeat them time and time again, particularly at those moments when you're going to sleep. Because if instead of getting fascinated with the events of the day, with the last movie or the last episode of whatever series you were binge watching through the day, you don't want to just throw yourself in bed and just continue in that fantasy. Let's disconnect from that. And let's make use of the creative power that we have within so that we can put it to the best use in the awakening of our consciousness. So the first one is a call to our Divine Mother, Tonantzin. And we say, Tonantzin, Tete Oinan, Divine Mother, come to me. Come to me. Come to me. Tonantzin, Tete Oinan, Divine Mother, come to me. Come to me. Come to me. As you put this prayer into practice, we will remind you, please keep your Gnostic journal close to your pillow. That way, the next morning when you wake up, remember, don't shake your body so that you don't erase those memories. Reach out for your journal and write down everything that you can recall from that oniric experience, from that astral experience. Because your Divine Mother will show herself. And the quicker that we can awaken consciousness in our astral body, the sooner we can have that direct interaction with our Divine Mother. And there is another prayer, very beautiful, very profound, that we would like to share with you as well. When we refer to our Divine Mother as Isis, the mother of Horus, the wife of Osiris, we say, O Isis, mother of the cosmos, root of love, root, stem, leaf, flower bud, and seed of all that exists, we conjure you, naturalizing force. We call upon the queen of the space and the night. When we say conjure, we have to break away from the many old fears and fixed ideas. This is not a conjuration of witchcraft. This is using the word conjuring as in invoke you. We call upon you. We conjure you, naturalizing force. We call upon the queen of space and night. Kissing your loving eyes. Drinking the dew of your lips. Breathing the sweet aroma of your body, we exclaim, O Nut, eternal Sati of the heavens, you who are the primordial soul, whom no mortal has raised your veil, when you are under the radiant stars of the profound nightly skies of the desert, with purity of heart and in the flame of the serpent, we invoke you. If you start reciting this prayer before you go to bed, and rather than drifting into our fantasies, we keep our objective imagination and our willpower in vibrant harmony, repeating these prayers, we are bringing ourselves closer and closer to our Divine Mother. And the closer we are to her, the more capable we are also in meditation. As we further our ability to comprehend our defects, my friend, we start becoming very capable of embracing what is the work of the wise. Because meditation is the daily esoteric practice of the sincere Gnostic student. For us to meditate, this is not just go somewhere where they say that they have a meditation hall and you sit down, you close your eyes, there are some bells ringing in the background, and after an hour you're done. That is not meditation, because there are some rules that we must follow to have a successful meditation. And Samael gives us 10 rules. These rules, we invite you to memorize them, so that you can always catch yourself if you are indeed practicing of an exercise of meditation or of an exercise of relaxation where you are just calming down and closing your eyes. Two completely different things. Because the first thing that we must do is that we need to become aware of our emotional state. Friends, whenever we know what is our emotional state, the moment that a thought comes around, remember that the emotional state is an effect of the thoughts. If we know what is our emotional state, the moment one of those inadvertent surprise thoughts shows up, we already know what type of aggregate is the one that is generating those thoughts. It becomes easier to find out from which cylinder in the human machine that aggregate is coming from. So once we are fully aware of our emotional state, we need to then investigate the origin of every thought. Once we know the origin of the thought, we will know the origin of the emotion. And this is where we bring that serene observation. This is where we bring that ability to contemplate, because rule number 3 is serene observation of every mental form that comes into the mind. Remember, we are not pushing against them. We are not creating any resistance. We are contemplating those thoughts. We are visualizing our physicality as if it were transparent, of a very subtle hue of blue, so that those thoughts, any sound that comes from outside, that it can just flow through without creating any effect. And we also have to realize that meditation is not just sitting down, closing your eyes, relaxing the body, the mind, chanting mantras. We have to be not only willing, we have to be capable of bringing meditation into the activity. The great masters, they go about their days and they do their chores and they teach and they preach and they eat and they get dressed. And all along they are in a deep meditative state. So we need to hold that sensation of contemplation at every moment of our daily lives. When we are doing that, we need then to keep in mind rule number 5, which is assume a receptive psychological state. That means that we need to open ourselves to that principle of spontaneity, because the consciousness will find whatever window the mind gives it. When the mind stops for a second, the consciousness will take action. And we will be able to see and perceive some image. We have to be watchful of that so that it does not get caught and blended with the many other images and fantasies that flow through our mind all the time. Rule number 6 is saying that when it comes to meditation, tenacity, firmness, and consistency of purpose, they need to exist in the practice. Meditation is not just once a quarter. Meditation is not just once a year when you go visit the Congress. This is something that needs to become the daily esoteric practice of every sincere Gnostic student. Rule number 7 is that whenever possible, you should participate of group meditation. If you're there and they don't know these rules, please don't try to force them into these rules. And please don't tell them that they are doing it wrong. Because we bring more bees with honey than with vinegar. So let's make of our actions that sweet honey. And if we participate of a group meditation, what happens is that there is a very peculiar energetic vortex that is created when all of those minds are united in affinity and thought and in sentiment. And those magnetic vortexes, they bring some very subtle forces from the superior dimensions of nature that come to help those who are doing those exercises correctly. Rule number 8 in meditation, we have to become vigilant of our own mind. We cannot expect to have a good exercise of meditation if during the day we have been butterflying from one fantasy unto the next one. And rule number 9 is avoid external sensorial perceptions. Samael says you need to close your eyes. But we also have the sensation of touch. If the room is too cold or if it is too hot, we know that the body is going to invite some resistance. So if it is possible, let's try to bring that room into a comfortable temperature. We know that noises, whether it's the dog outside or the neighbor with the car, or maybe the argument down the street, it may become a little distracting. If that is the case, play some classical music. Invite some music from Mozart, Beethoven, Liszt, Richard Wagner. And play that music at a volume that is good enough to overcome the distractions from the outside, but also at a volume that is low enough to not interrupt your practice. And rule number 10, and from our consideration, the certain foundation of the meditative exercise. To meditate, you need to have absolute relaxation, and you need to learn to wisely combine meditation and sleep. This means that for you to meditate, you need to be able to achieve that perfect balance between the vigil state and the sleep state. Because when you are meditating, we need to give an opportunity for the ego to leave the body so that the vital body can then work on the regeneration of the physicality, so that all those neural networks that exist within your brain, all of those new connections that are being fostered and being created, so that you can allow for that to happen, because it is the ethereal body, the ones that is responsible for enabling those changes. If we are trying to meditate and we are stiff and we are awake and we are fighting in our mind of not drifting into one fantasy or the next one, and if we are saying, I have 15 minutes to meditate, and our attention is on the watch or on the clock on the wall, not on the exercise, it is not an exercise of meditation. So we need absolute relaxation and the wise combination of meditation and sleep. Because, friends, there are many different types of meditation. The fact that somebody is sitting and has achieved the calmness of the mind, the relaxation of the emotional center, the relaxation of the physicality, once that is done, you can use that favorable, auspicious condition to do many different things. And when it comes to meditating, one thing that you can use it for is for the comprehension of a teaching. It is very common for students to grab a book of Samael and to read it as if it were a novel. And by the time they are done, there has been so much discussed in that book that they will be able to recall a handful of things, and a few years down the road, they will not even remember what was in the book. And this happens because deep in the subconscious, there is a self-imposed lie of the ego that says, we will be available later to do this again. That is not true. The only moment that we have is this current moment. And if we are so fortunate that we have in our hands a book of Samael, take a chapter, read it, and go into this exercise so that you can comprehend the teaching. Because Samael says, the balance between being and knowing sparks within our psyche the flame of comprehension. So, when you assume that meditative, reverential posture, and you do an exercise of retrospection on the material that you just studied, dear friend, you will know if there is any doubt anywhere on your degree of understanding. And if there is something that you don't comprehend, you know exactly where to go back and look for it so that you can apprehend the profoundness of the teaching. Beyond comprehension of teachings, we can also do a practice that is known as the samyasi of thought. And the samyasi allows for the emancipation of the consciousness. You see, because many people who are really good at meditating, what they have learned, and this is what happens, is that when the mind calms down, when the ego surrenders, the consciousness escapes. And the moment that the consciousness escapes, for the first time that that happens to you, the shock is so intense that all of a sudden you feel that you are not someone anymore. And in that shock of consciousness, you immediately come back into the physicality. And most people, they react in a way that they just grab something and they're like wondering, like, what happened? That little event that is known, that micro instant is just an experience of the nothingness of the illuminating void. When the consciousness escapes the bottle of the ego, the consciousness is capable of experiencing not only the illuminating void, but of connecting directly with the innermost. There are some great masters of meditation that are able to see the projection of their consciousness beyond the macrocosmos, which is that realm of the sixth dimension where your innermost and their innermost and our innermost, it is a citizen of the galaxy. Beyond that, into the Ayocosmos, which is the realm of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. That realm of the three laws. The thing is that even though they can go there and visit, that consciousness cannot stay there. You see, those are realms that we will learn at a later time, in those most advanced lectures, that there are specific bodies necessary to exist at that realm of consciousness. And because they don't have those bodies, they cannot stay there. They can be visitors, but they cannot become citizens of that realm. And thus, they have to come from all the way up there back into the physicality, once again to find themselves here, dealing with the chaos that we have here every day. And those sannyasis, they allow for this. You look at your physical body, and you come to see that your physical body, that is not you. You come to look at the foundation of your physical body, your vital body, and you can see that the vital body is not you. You go beyond that into the fifth dimension of nature, and you look at what is today your astral body, and you can see that that astral body is not you. You then go beyond that into the realm of the mind, and you can see that you are not the mind. Beyond that, you go into the realm of causation, where everything is entirely mathematical. And you can see those manifestations of willpower, and you say, that is not me. Those who can, they walk into the realm of the spiritual soul, Buddhi, which is an aspect of our innermost, of our monad. And they see that that spiritual soul, that superlative consciousness of the innermost, that's not me. And the moment that they walk into the realm of the innermost, like a voice of thunder in that experience, it says, I am El. That is a sannyasi. It allows for the emancipation of the consciousness. But also it allows for you to be able to get your physical body and get it into Jin state. Stories of St. Francis of Assisi, that his helper, he used to bring him lunch, and he used to sit down and just get frustrated because he would be in an ecstasy and floating up there at the ceiling of the chapel for hours. And he would have to sit there and wait, and the food was getting cold. You see, that experience, St. Francis of Assisi, St. Stanislaw of Hungary, many other great masters who levitated, that is because they were able to get their bodies into a condition of Jin state. But we can also use meditation to learn about the faculties and the values of the heart. We can use meditation to bring back those faculties and those values. And Samael says, what you should do as a student is that in that deep state of meditation, you need to concentrate in the temple of your heart, that chakra, anahata. And he says, use your objective imagination so that you can see that once in that space, as you look into the heavens, that there are clouds of thunder. Those are clouds that are moved by the winds of the hurricanes. See that within those clouds that there are eagles flying. Look at the distance and you will see that there are mountains, beautiful mountain ranges that extend beyond what those eyes can see. And as you continue to penetrate into that, you will find yourself in that deep, dense, dark forest. Within that forest, he says, listen objectively to the singing of the birds. Listen objectively to the whistling of the crickets. And you will find that in that forest there is a temple. And in that temple that there is a throne of gold. And that in that throne that there is a majestic being that is sitting that is known as the goddess Kakini. Kakini is one of the many manifestations of that beautiful eternal feminine. And in that deep state of meditation, you can reach out and you can ask for guidance, for education, for teaching. You can ask for advice, because the advice that you will get, it will help you to awaken the faculties of the heart: imagination, inspiration, and intuition. In the exercise of meditation, we can also expand the consciousness. And Samael says, for you to practice this exercise of expanding the consciousness, the moment that you have relaxed that physical body, that mind, and that emotional center, he says, select your chair in which you meditate. Because Samael says, for you to meditate, select a chair and use that chair only for that purpose. Don't try to use a chair that is the chair that you use to play video games. Because, dear friend, you magnetize that chair with all of those inferior emotions. Don't try to be meditating on the same sofa that you sit down to watch violent action movies, because you have magnetized that sofa with all of those inferior emotions as well. Use your chair, the one at home that is exclusive for meditation. And he says, as you have relaxed your mind and your body, he says, start expanding your consciousness, but start within you. Start within your heart and see how this radiant blue light expands from the heart into the nearby organs. And then see, as it saturates those organs with light, how it expands to the other contiguous organs that exist within your body, until you have saturated that thoracic cavity with light. And see that light continuing to expand above you, below you, to the sides, around you, within you. And see that light expanding as it reaches into the ceiling of the room and the walls, and you can fill that room with that light of consciousness. And then expand that to your house. And then expand that throughout your community. Expand that. And as you continue doing this exercise, you can continue going farther into external dimensions, to the state, in your country, until you expand it and it encompasses all of Earth, until it starts encompassing out into the vastness of space. At first, this exercise may prove a little challenging, but don't despair. These are beautiful practices, and the realizations that come from them will certainly surprise you and delight you. We can also use the practice of meditation to do something that is known as transvaluation, which is so necessary in these days. Because Samael tells us it is urgent for us to value the esoteric Gnostic work. You see, we have these false ideas where we think, and we don't even think, we give the current moment. We take it for granted. We give away the greatest opportunities to do work because of the many commitments and fantasies of our ego. We have to start valuing the esoteric work. Samael says it is indispensable to comprehend it and apply it if we truly seek a radical change. And what that means is that in the exercise of transvaluation, as we do the exercise of retrospection, some days you think that there are no events that stand out, and because of that, Well, that is part of the progress that we need to be doing, because we have to start learning to look deeper. But just because you think that there's no moment that stands out, don't just end the exercise and give it away. Look at the many things that you thought, that you said, that you did, that you felt, that you heard. And of all of those, start asking yourself, what is it that you in reality should have been doing? And you will find many instances in which you dedicated your day to binge watch TV. And because you spent the whole day in the couch, well, there was really nothing happening, so there's really no outstanding event. But in reality, that is a good part of the day. 6 or 10 hours gone that could have been used for what is the true esoteric work. Time that you could have dedicated to effectively affect a radical change. So we need to look at what we heard, what we said, what we thought, what we felt, what we did, and see what of this is truly valuable. And if you are not sure, or you find yourself too reasonable in the concept of valuable, think in terms of honorable. And you will find that if it is not honorable, it is something that we could certainly put aside, and that we can invest our time in much better ways. We can also do the Lord's Prayer during the exercise of meditation. And Samael says a good Lord's Prayer in an exercise of meditation is going to take you at least an hour. And there are 7 petitions in the Lord's Prayer. As you do this, look at each one of those petitions and contemplate them. Allow those thoughts to flow, but also embrace the principle of spontaneity. And you will see the profound teachings that come from the Our Father prayer itself. And of course, we can use the exercise of meditation to integrate ourselves with our Divine Mother. Because Samael tells us when a devotee supplicates to his Divine Mother, he or she must be disposed to sleep and be submerged in a deep and profound meditation. If you would like to sit before your Divine Mother, being able to exchange some profound words with her, to receive teaching and guidance from her, we need to do that, but only through the state of meditation. And also the exercise of meditation will show you about the force of countertransference and how to overcome it. Because you will see that every time from now on that you think that you want to sit down and meditate, there would be many reasons why you just don't want to do it. You will find that there are many reasons why it cannot just happen right now. And the moment you sit down to meditate, there would be many more reasons for which meditation will fail. Whether it is that your feet fell asleep and then you start feeling the little ants crawling back into your feet. You know what that is? Whether it is the noisy car down the street, or whether it is your spouse calling you asking you if you're a favor, or whether it is your pet that does something to the carpet. Many things will show up. But what we see is that every time that we embark in an activity that is truly transformational, the ego will always exercise its resistance. The ego will see itself at risk of ceasing to exist, and it will create diversions to steal away your attention from what you must do so that you go and focus on something else. And that is the force of countertransference. And the ego will use your anger. The ego will use your sloth and your laziness. It will use your lust, your ambitions, and your greed. It will use your envies, your self-consideration, and your vanities. It will use all of them, one after the other, or any one of them, or combination thereof, just to make sure that you do not do the work that can really result in a transformation. And through meditation, you can understand what this is. Friends, as we are bringing this lecture to an end, we would not like to leave without giving you the jewels of the golden dragon. Because from the ancient Zen Buddhism, we have been receiving all of these tools, practices, and doctrine that are destined to allow us to eliminate everything that is inhumane within us, so that we can effectively transform and take a leap onto the other side. And when it comes to the jewels of the golden dragon, Samael reveals to this humanity two jewels. The first jewel consists of various elements. It is the work with the mantras that Samael has taught us and that you know very well. It is the work with the koans, those enigmatic phrases to take the mind and expose it to them until it surrenders. And it is also the exercise on the reconciliation of the opposites. This has its roots in the very ancient Hermetic teachings, particularly on that principle of polarities, where it says that all opposites must be reconciled. And the exercise of reconciliation of opposites in this ancient tradition is known as pratihara. You see, you remember this from our pre-chamber, because the textbook example that Samael uses is when we think on that beautiful person. And before we identify and fascinate with that beautiful image of that person that we are infatuated with, he invites us to think that eventually that person would get old, wrinkled, decrepit, it will die, and the body will rot. And by doing that, we reconcile those two extremes, and then we can disconnect from that fascination. So these are things that we are familiar with. But the second jewel of the golden dragon is given to the students when they reach the intermediate level of studies. And we would like to give that to you as part of this Christmas message, because we all need this. And the second jewel of the golden dragon tells us we are not the mind. It says within us there is more than one mind. And we know that we carry within this legion of the many, many psychological aggregates that we carry. The second jewel of the golden dragon states that our consciousness is empowered to recriminate and scold the mind. And this is not that you sit down and that you start telling with the voice of your mind, don't do this, and nag it, because that is certainly not it. What this is asking of us is to give the consciousness an opportunity to operate actively. And for the consciousness to state this without the utterance of any words, because the consciousness communicates in ways that are very clear and profound. And say, mind, take away this thought. This thought is not allowed. You're not allowed to do this. For the consciousness to tell the mind, you are here to serve me. For the consciousness to scold the mind in such a way that the mind responds before the power of the consciousness itself. And with that, it comes down. It may take a little while to get there, but that is not an obstacle for us. For the time being, we will make use of everything positive and constructive that may exist at the moment within us, and we will use the second jewel of the golden dragon to reprimand, to scold, and to bring that mind recriminated and subjected so that it responds only to the service and the direction of the consciousness. Because it is this work what leads us into the path of initiation. Samael says there are three eyes that lead us into the path of initiation: imagination, inspiration, and intuition. And these are all faculties of the heart. These faculties of the heart are what regulate the rising of that sacred serpent within us. These faculties of the heart are what give us the dominion not only over the element of air, but the ability to apprehend the significance of things without having to think. To know what is the spiritual reality of things without having to create any kind of mental abstract. When all these come together in this path of initiation, the consciousness is then able to effectively exercise its instinctive comprehension of the cosmic truths. And when that happens, we slowly start coming closer and closer to that fire that is our innermost. But don't forget this. We have to maintain the remembrance of self. Not only we hope that at some point we will be able to carry our deep state of meditation into the practice, but between now and then, there is still some more in this path that we must walk. And when it comes to the remembrance of self, let's refresh briefly what are the four states of consciousness, because there is one of particular interest to us. There is akasia, which is the state in which the physical body is in a profound state of sleep. That is what happens today when we throw ourselves in bed. Then there is the state of pistis. That is the vigil state. A very dangerous state because the body is doing things while the consciousness is still asleep. The last state is the state of nous. That is the state of the great masters. That is the state of objective consciousness. You see, there is an incarnation of the innermost right then and there active. The third state is of our interest. That is the state of dianoia. And this is the state of self-consciousness. This is the state in which we can maintain the remembrance of self. So for us to do that, we have to make sure that we are not identifying and fascinating with the circumstances. So as we are walking down the street, the moment that as we maintain that self-awareness of what is happening within our body, our emotions, our thoughts, our actions, if we catch ourselves flirting with somebody, we need to be able to immediately exercise that reconciliation of opposites. If we find ourselves contemplating a new car that we don't need, we have to immediately reconcile the opposites and think eventually that car is going to get old and it's going to have the same problems that the one that I have right now has. Maybe we don't need to do this now. The moment that we start getting fascinated with our problems, we have to be able to calm our mind, our emotions, relax our physicality, so that we can allow the consciousness to guide us. So all of this that we have shared today here becomes an exercise in not much if we choose to continue living life without changing our way of thinking. So this is the right moment for us to remember that we must bring forth this remembrance of self. And I would like to leave you with words from our senior instructors from the ICQ. Every year they come together, and after many months of work, they capture these Christmas messages. These are instructors Ismaela and Lupita, which we hold in dearest admiration. And in this book that they have released, they have stated meditation is a science, and we must study its techniques and put them into practice. But meditation is also an art in the way that it requires of us to use our superior emotional center. See, meditation is many things. Meditation is also a philosophy because it also becomes a way of life. And meditation is also mystical as it allows us to connect with divinity. They say meditation is gnosis by itself. It allows for true, profound changes that bring us closer to the divine spirit. And we are eternally grateful to our good friends for setting up this Christmas message for us. So if at some point somebody came to you and they said, meditation? Why are you meditating? Why is it that we want to do this? Give them the answer that Master Samael Aumveor says, and he gives us. And he says, what are we seeking through meditation? Tranquility. We meditate because we're seeking to calm ourselves down. Samael says, when the Arat meditates, he or she is seeking for calmness. Dear friends, as always, we are very grateful to all of these sources through which we were able to put this material together and today bring this to you. So, dear friends, this has been our Christmas message of the year 2020 to 2021. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much for allowing us to be with you at home. And when we say, may all beings be happy. To everyone, a Merry Christmas and our best wishes for a glorious New Year. Thank you so much.